Hello. One of the things that I keep seeing coming up with discussions that I have with other saltwater aquarium enthusiasts, it's kind of a debate and a sensitive topic, and I'm just going to kind of weigh in on my opinions on that. Um, Sumps, sumps on a saltwater tank, are they necessary? Should I put one on my tank or that sort of thing? The answer with the sump is that it depends. My personal opinion is if you have a 55 gallon or larger tank, then yes, you really do need a sump. You need the additional water flow. You need the more effective protein skimmers that generally go in a sump, which are a lot more effective than hang on back skimmers. Um, and as such, that's what I would recommend. When you're talking a tank of 50 gallons or less, it gets a little more, tricky in terms of whether or not I recommend it. Personally, I am not a fan of sumps on smaller tanks. I know a lot of people say that, oh, it's crucial to have that increased water flow because you don't have as much displacement. Well, my opinion is this: if you're going to spend the kind of money and put in the kind of effort required to put a sump on a smaller tank, you've got two options. You're either going to have to get an overflow box, which has a siphon, which has a tendency to get plugged and jammed and can literally overflow all over the outside of your tank if it does get plugged up. As well as the individuals who, for whatever reason, just decide they're going to drill a tank on their own. Um, would not recommend getting a drill and just drilling a tank. I know some people do it and they've had good luck with it. More power to them. But I've also known some people who've ended up running a drill through tempered glass and they end up with a tank that is shattered in pieces. So my personal recommendation is if it wasn't drilled from the factory, just don't do it. A factory pre-drilled tank is the most effective method for running a sump if you're going to do it. But back to the thing about smaller tanks and sumps. The thing to understand is that, as I mentioned, you're either going to have to drill the smaller tank, which I don't recommend, or you're going to have to put in an overflow box, which has the potential to create some serious leakage problems and water spillage problems for you on a smaller tank. Furthermore, the problem is that, some people go, oh, I'll just put a 10-gallon sump on my tank or whatever. You really need something in the neighborhood, in my opinion, of 20 to 30 gallons, regardless of the size of the tank, in order to make a sump effective for what you want. The increased water flow, the place to put the additional equipment, get a higher end skimmer, a higher flow skimmer that's going to do a better job for you, as well as, the possibility of doing, say, a filter sock and then having a solid return pump that's going to give you good flow. The problem with smaller sump tanks is that there's just, quite frankly, there's not enough room for equipment. 10-gallon tank is not sufficient, in my opinion, to hold the equipment necessary that you're going to need in order to truly get the full benefit of a sump. As somebody who has a 90-gallon tank with a 29-gallon sump, I can tell you all I run right now is a filter sock, a Hydor 405 protein skimmer. I have a little chamber in there where it's got a little partition where it has some Rebel Rock in it. And then I've got my Jabao DC 8000T return pump. That's all I have in my sump, and I can tell you that equipment-wise, it's fairly packed. And that's a 29-gallon sump. So the point is that by the time you add in all that equipment in there, it's so cramped you're barely going to be able to fit anything in it if you're talking a smaller size sump tank. In addition, it is going to make it an unbelievable bear if you ever have to remove or do maintenance on your equipment, clean it out or whatever, which once in a great while you're going to have to do. And just working in and around the sump is going to be an absolute bear. And so for these reasons, I do not recommend, small size sump tanks, and I don't recommend sumps on smaller tanks. It just adds a needless degree of complexity and cost to your setup. Furthermore, keep in mind that people generally upgrade at some point later on to a larger size setup, and anytime you do a significant upgrade, you have to rebuy all your equipment. So the more complex you make it, the more equipment you buy, that's just more equipment that you're going to have to rebuy and more expense you're going to have in the future. So for me personally, I would say 50 gallons or less. I would just get a really solid hang-on back filter, something in the fluval line, depending on the size of the tank that you get, anywhere from the smaller tanks, like a 10 to 20 gallon tank, the fluval 30, or the Seachem Tidal hang-on back filters, something in the same comparable range, all the way up to, the 110 if you're going with like a 40 or 50 gallon tank. A power head would be good. Protein skimmer, it's kind of hit and miss with that, because generally you'd be going with a hang-on back in that sort of a configuration. I would just recommend actually just more frequent water changes, and then keeping the equipment as simple as possible. That way you can save money for a potential upgrade later at some point if you so desire. As well as having less mechanical equipment to maintain, because all mechanical equipment requires maintenance. It doesn't matter what it is. At some point it's going to need to be cleaned out, it's going to need to be gone through, or whatever it might be, and the more equipment you have, the more maintenance you have. It's just a simple fact of life. So once again, for the people who are sitting there and going, I want to put a sump on my 20 to 30 gallon tank, just do yourself a favor. Don't bother with it. Don't mess with it. Just keep it simple. Do the regular water changes. You'll be fine, and you just, as I said, less expense, less hassle. If you have, say, a 55 gallon or larger tank, I'd recommend getting a pre-drilled tank, and then yes, doing, say, a 20 to 30 gallon minimum size sump. And then you will get some good benefit from it. So that's really all I have on that subject, but I just figured I'd kind of go through and clarify that for those of you who are looking into smaller setups as well as larger setups, and just, kind of deciding, okay, what do I recommend doing? The one other thing I will add, the most problematic filtration method in terms of nitrate buildup, leaks, and whatever, is actually the dreaded canister filter. I know they're really popular with freshwater aquariums. People like it because of the cleaner look, but by and large, they are the most problematic method by far in terms of number of complaints, people having out-of-control nitrate issues, because it's very difficult to truly get them 100% cleaned out, and you have to really stay on top of the maintenance and cleaning out, and being very thorough in cleaning out the unit. Otherwise, it's just going to build up nitrates like crazy, and you're just going to be constantly fighting a losing battle. That, and of course, canister filters, quite frankly, in my opinion, are ridiculously overpriced. They're just expensive. I spent less money on my 29-gallon sump with a return pump and plumbing and everything else. I mean, granted, I bought it used, than I did on a standard, canister filter. So I would just say that I would avoid canister filters at all costs in a saltwater aquarium. If you're going smaller, go with a hang-on back filter. If you're going larger, just get a sump, and you'll be happier with your choice, and just have less maintenance and hassle and issues in the long run. And that's all I have for that, and thanks for watching.